just going to run through some basic features and some quick tips on using a circular saw. Although this is a battery saw, the corded versions are pretty much identical in regards to the features that they have. So first off, of course, you have the main body, which is normally operated by a two-part trigger. You have the base plate, or the shoe as it's sometimes known. Sometimes these are made of plastic, sometimes they're made of metal. Generally on the front and sometimes the back, you have a little lever or a knob for changing the angle of which you want to cut. And this one runs up to 50 degrees. Normally on the back side, there is a little lever which allows you to set the height of the cut that you're doing. So first off, what you want to do is set the height for your saw blade. Now again, say it's a lever on the back, and you want it so no more than one full teeth is going through the bottom of the actual piece that you're cutting, and then just lock it off into place. All circular saws, it is the bottom side of the piece you're cutting which will be the clean cut, and it will be the rough cut for the top side. These two pieces are indeed maybe some workhorses or saw benches, and you put the piece of plywood on you want to cut. Now if you were to cut in the middle here, it is not supported in the middle, and it will cause the piece of wood to bind, and it will probably cause a saw to what we call kickback, where it jumps out the piece, which can be quite dangerous, especially if there's fingers around. So you always want to make sure you're cutting just over the edge, or indeed over a timber or a piece which is fully supported to stop the kickback. What you want to do is make sure that the saw gets up to speed before you start the cut. Also start the saw just away from the edge where you want to start cutting. If you only need to take a small amount off the edge of the board, you can always just use the fence that comes with the saw. You want to take a measurement of the blade from the edge of the base. It's also a good idea to write this number on the saw somewhere so you don't forget it. When you are unable to use a fence, firstly mark out the size piece that you want, deduct this figure from it, and then from there you clamp an edge and this becomes your guide. To rail for our saw, we are first going to take two strips which we know are straight. One at about 22 centimetres and one at 10 centimetres. We're going to glue them together using wood glue. I'm using Type Bond 2 here. Clamp them together. These are my homemade bandy clamps. I'll leave a link to the video on how to make these in the description below. After about 30 minutes we can take the clamps off. We can then place our saw on the top and trim the rail down to size. Now when you mark a piece of timber, you place this rail directly onto the marks and clamp into place. It makes it so much easier as it's the exact size that you need. The only downside is you lose the thickness of the rail from the depth of cut. Line your saw up, use the square down to make sure you're cutting at 90 degrees. When cutting cross grain or especially plywood, this can cause spelching or breakout. One way to get around this is to score it first with a knife. This will give you a nice clean cut every time. The top side tends to chip or spelch as we sometimes call it. One thing you can do with some surfaces is put some masking tape on it first before you cut. This will help protect the edge and give you a nice clean cut on the top surface, and you've also already got one on the bottom surface. If you are wanting to do an angle cut, you'll notice that as you try to start the cut, the bottom part of the lower guide here will push the saw off the line. Now to start the cut, what you will need to do on this occasion is just lift the lower guard very carefully, start the cut. Once you've started, lower the guard back down and continue on. It is possible to do a plunge cut with a circular saw. You will need to lift the guard up, the front edge resting down first, then as you actually plunge it, you very slowly plunge it down and forward. Be very careful when doing this because it is a very high tendency to kick back, which again can cause either damage to your workpiece or damage to yourself. A couple of things to know is wear ear defenders and eye protection when you are using a circular saw, because safety must come first. Always make sure your workpiece is indeed clamped down and secure, just again for safety reasons. If you are using a corded version, also be aware of where the cord is, because this can cause trip hazards. It can also snag on the work, causing you to lose balance while using the saw. If there's anything else you think I've missed, please leave it in the comments down below. Thank you for watching.